Welcome to ETMA Tech Talk, the podcast that unveils forces shaping the future of tech. In each episode, we bring together visionary leaders, forward-thinking innovators, and game-changing experts who are transforming the enterprise tech landscape. Listen to insider perspectives, dive into bold stories of digital transformation and strategic breakthroughs. Here is your host, ETMA's Managing Director, Joe Basili.
What does it take to turn a complex enterprise cost management platform into a partner-friendly, revenue-generating machine? For AMI strategy, the answer lies in enablement, not just automation. In this episode, we're going to be discussing how AMI Strategies has built a go-to market approach for its partners. Our guest is Dave Sonenstein, AMI's Vice President of Product Strategy and an ETMA Hall of Famer.
Thanks, Joe.
Tell us about AMI and its areas of focus.
My headquarters just outside of Detroit, Michigan, in Livonia, has been around for 34 years. Started in the expense management space for Telecom and grew over the years to include categories such as mobility, cloud, utility, SaaS management. And really where we focus for our clients and our partners is telecom, technology, and utility expense management, platform services, and managed services. Really focus for organizations that support many locations and sites, many devices, and or many changes, right, in their environment. For example, network upgrades, moving from legacy systems, et cetera.
From a buying and selling perspective, what areas interest you?
I head up both our strategic partners, which would be the organizations that AMI uses to help deliver our services, as well as our white label program. So that would be partners that leverage AMI services in a private label environment to offer their services to their end clients. So when I'm looking for strategic partners, I'm really interested in solution providers that are either near, adjacent, or complementary to services that we offer. So if we are looking at a specific category, for example, utility expense management, if there are partners out there that can help leverage or complement what we do with platforms or technology they've built, we can weave that into our service. That's very interesting to me because at the end of the day, we're trying to provide value to our clients, and you can't always do that natively. So we're always looking for partners that can enhance the services that we offer. When I'm looking from a selling perspective, especially in this context for private label or white label services, I'm looking for partners that have an existing client base that's serviceable, meaning that they already have a stable of clients. Usually in that type of environment, these partners are either looking to automate what they're doing. They have great people, and those people could be a great sales team, a great analyst team, but really what they're lacking is the automation required to scale what they're doing or reduce the overhead of the services they're delivering. So that's one of the key attributes I look for within our white label program. Is there an existing body of work that we can enhance or propel, as opposed to partners who maybe haven't been selling this type of service, don't have a lot of experience around it, may not always be the right fit for a white label solution, but we can certainly help them.
And you mentioned white label a couple times. Can you talk a little bit about that? That seems unique from a partnering perspective. I think a lot of times some companies are reluctant to provide a white label aspect and want to keep their branding out there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what white label is, right? So it is branded as their service. It's contracted as their service. We have a few different types of partnerships. We have our referral and channel partnerships where AMI is contracting directly with the end client. In a white label or private label environment, we're actually providing our services to the partner, right? And the partner is delivering that under their own brand, oftentimes with various aspects where they're providing aspects of that service delivery. We may be providing the platform or some of the analyst services brought to the client actually as a partner branded solution, partner contracts, et cetera. So that's usually the distinction is, what company's papers is on, who has the direct relationship with the client. And in a white label context, our partner has that direct relationship in terms of interaction and contracting and so forth.
That's a helpful distinction. And from a partnering perspective, do you have any considerations in terms of deal size or geographic regions or maybe products?
Yeah, when we look at private label partnerships, we don't look at it at a transaction level. We look at it as a relationship level. If you're just looking to do one or two opportunities or transactions, that's not a white label partnership on our side. That's more of a referral type offering. When we look at bringing on strategic partners, there's a lot that goes into standing up a white label partner. I'll give you the example. If they're really just using our platform and in our assembly line, but layering in their own analysts, right? And layering in their own implementation teams, their own salespeople who are out there soliciting the services. There's a lot that we do in terms of training and onboarding and making sure, just as we do with our own staff. We've been doing this for 34 years. We have a lot of best practices, and we've been servicing clients directly for that entire time. So what we're doing is training our partners the same way we train our own internal staff, our analysts, our allocation teams, et cetera, the same way that we would layer on those managed services to our platform for direct clients. That is what we're providing to our partners as well. So that's how we look at it. When you're doing that, you're really looking at a marriage. We look at this as a 5-10 year relationship, not a transaction by transaction relationship, which kind of goes back to, is there an existing body of work? Is this a line of business that the partner is embedded in, comfortable in, and is really looking to enhance, right? Or is this something that is, more of a spec thing? We want to try it, see if it works for us, right? That's usually not a good area to look at when you're thinking of white labeling the entire managed solution, right, on top of the technology, which we also have options on as well. We don't really look at it as a deal size. We're looking at this as a business as a whole, because we really become embedded. Our job is to automate the busy work, provide enterprise grade technology and services, and really enable those businesses to scale what they're doing maybe in-house today with the technology that they put together, or oftentimes it's very manual until we come up.
Gotcha. So you referred to it as almost like a marriage, these partnerships, where you're really tightly aligned. Can you give us some examples of maybe just like a marriage where two partners complement each other, where potentially you've been able to fill gaps within your partner's offering and it's helped them advance?
Yeah, so I'll give you a few examples. We work with a lot of solution providers. One example would be a partner of ours who's a wireless solution provider who did not have the ability to provide a customized order portal to their end clients. They were taking in all their orders manually, right? Tracking them manually. So what we did was provide that portal access, right? We actually have APIs with all the major carriers embedded into our platforms. We were able to automate those and take that off their plate through automation, but still give them control over their ordering capabilities and provide that Amazon-like experience to their end clients. Another example is we work with a lot of contingency firms in the telecom and utility space. And these firms often use our technologies for a few reasons. Number one, to automate where their core business is, right? A lot of that is looking at invoices, auditing them, finding opportunity. We can help them do that through our PDF and invoice readers and how we present it in our platform in a fraction of the time that it takes. Additionally, a lot of these organizations want to provide options to their end clients to say, okay, we found these savings. Would you like us to come back in a year and do this all over again? Or would you like to implement a monthly service that prevents this happening in the future? A lot of them want to move into monthly recurring services. Because we are so embedded in invoice lifecycle management, from invoice retrieval to allocation to auditing to approvals, all the way up to payments. That's really hard to build from the ground up if you've never done it before, and it's taken us many years to perfect it. Well, they get to leverage our expertise and the processes and the assembly line that we've built to make that turnkey and offer new revenue opportunities above and beyond what their core services dictate.
And then have you embedded AI into your solution?
Yeah, so in various areas, my view on AI is it is very good for helping our team identify areas that to help provide context, summarize, and find new insights. When it comes to taking unstructured data, when we process an invoice, we process it down to the most granular levels. I may be eating these words in 6 months, but we've spent many years developing AI solutions, and we still haven't found the level of granularity that we require. If you think of a 10,000 page, BT wireless invoice, to be able to pull that level of detail, AI is just not there yet. So we use a variety of different technologies to help you get context of the data once you've collected it and look at that data in a variety of ways. We've gone through the evolution of dashboards and reporting and analytics. And now we have the ability, if you want to ask, right, the platform questions and have it return information back without having to pre-build dashboards and things like that. That's really where we see the opportunity.
Gotcha. And then from a partner perspective, in terms of checkpoints and just managing that partner relationship, are there any things that you're doing to ensure that the end user client, that they're delivering on high levels of client satisfaction? And as you mentioned, recurring revenue, of course, is the name of the game as well.
Yeah, a lot of this comes from our experience of delivering to our end clients. When we act as a white label platform on the invoice lifecycle management, we take all the headaches out of doing invoice retrieval, processing, allocations, auditing. We still monitor all that. And if we see invoices approaching a due date, especially in the utility space, that's one area where we've been very strong. A lot of telecom expense management firms that are managing large networks for their end clients. Well, where there's a lot of network, there's also a lot of utility. So being able to add that as an area of scope to increase revenues for the client. With utilities, you have 14-day payment cycles, right? So making sure invoice is approved and marked for payment and paid in time. These are all things that we monitor and have programmed in our systems. We help keep an eye on things and alert the partner, hey, we're seeing this on this side, right? Is there anything we can do to help making sure they're successful in the same way we expect to be successful in our own direct client business is the benefit. So we're not just sitting here as a platform provider who doesn't know the context, right? Or how this really works on the end client side. We walk in those shoes and we can help get the client or the partner up to speed and also monitor to make sure that they're delivering on what they promised to their end clients.
You mentioned this idea of a 14-day turnaround to receive the invoice and get it paid. And I totally get that. You don't want your power turned off. You don't want your phones turned off, services turned off because you failed to pay the bill. What's the typical cycle time for an invoice?
It depends on the category, right? Oftentimes we see in technology and telecom, you have the ability to negotiate what your payment terms are, right? And we usually see those, 30 days. When you're talking about utilities, there isn't any negotiation, right? And you may have a payment window of 14 days, right? And for organizations that support a lot of locations, that can be really challenging, especially if you're just waiting on the mail. It's a very reactive process. Comes in, has to be coded, has to be approved, has to be paid. All that's being done manually. It is not uncommon that you see a lot of late fees, right? Shutoffs and disconnect notices. We see that a lot when we talk to AP departments. They're like, we do not have a streamlined process for this. We manage everything in spreadsheets. We're tired of fighting fires when unexpected disconnect notices or actual disconnects happen. Because of our assembly line and what we've developed over the years, we retrieve the invoice immediately when it's available. We bring it in, we use our PDF translators to process them and allocate them. We can set thresholds as far as can things auto approve, right? As long as they do not violate this threshold that's dictated by the client. So it can go from retrieval to mark for payment same day, right? And be paid. And the only things surfaced for the end client are the things that require their attention, right? So if they've set a threshold that as long as these invoices do not violate this threshold, then go ahead and approve it all the way through. They're only surfacing the ones that do require their attention. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. That we had a client that we brought on not too long ago. Before we came on board, they were paying several $1 million a year just in late fees.
Wow.
And how we turn that around to, hey, You can start negotiating early payment discounts. That's what we offer in that context is this is a proven assembly line, right? That makes sure it is as efficient as possible to make sure these invoices are paid. In the background, when we look at things like technology and telecom, where you have negotiated rates and very complex pricing structures, we're also auditing these. We're monitoring for any changes, any new changed or deleted services from the invoice are flagged. Our analysts review those, they validate the changes. So we're also making sure you never pay more than you're supposed to, and actually going and fighting that fight with the providers to, if a rate is wrong, get it changed, right? To make sure it doesn't continue billing and make sure it's credited. Going back to the white label context, oftentimes our partners say, hey, we've got great analysts. What we don't have is great tech. And if you can automate finding the things that I need to investigate and give me that workbench where I can go manage a dispute. And that's really what our system does. It gives you that workbench to actually create a dispute, manage it, update it. Think of it as like a ServiceNow ticketing, right? For dispute management and do all your interactions until a credit appears on an invoice. And then being able to bring it back to that case, brings it back to the GL code. So we provide all that technology so the analysts can do what they do best. Analyze, not search for that needle in a haystack and all those other activities. So going back to helping them scale their business, we provide the technology workbench and the automation and the assembly line that allows them to do that, right?
So let's talk more about your partner relationships and the idea of stickiness, because obviously that's the name of the game. You talked about you've got a process in place and you've got the automation and the tech. Are there other aspects that make those partnerships more sticky?
Well, I mean, the key to making it sticky, especially when you're doing large scale invoice processing, a lot goes into that setup and execution. By way of that, it can be very sticky because it takes a lot to get that all set up and get it moving in the assembly line to be able to establish access with all the providers so you can retrieve those invoices in an automated way as soon as they're available. So that type of setup makes it sticky as long as you're executing. That's really where we provide the tools for our partners to execute the training, the best practices, all the way up from even how you onboard clients. Once again, we've walked a mile in those shoes, right? And oftentimes in these strategic partnerships, what we're removing is our managed services, our team that's working that workbench and inserting the partner team in there the same way our team would be.
Gotcha. And I know AMI Strategies is always innovating and trying to execute new things. You as a person are probably always evolving as well. Are there some interesting projects that you could talk to us about that the audience would like to hear about?
Yeah, you bet. We're always looking to scale our business better, right? So we are always looking at new technologies. One of the big projects that we're really excited about this year is our ability to build new translators for invoices. We're going to be able to do this, and we're finalizing the development in a fraction of the time that has historically taken us. And, in telecom and technology, you see a lot of the same providers over and over. AT&T is AT&T. Verizon is, well, AT&T is AT&T, but there's many, many billing systems, right? That they support, and you have to support all of them. But it usually is very repeatable, client by client. As our utility business has grown exponentially, you have a lot of the same electricity and gas providers. But when you look at water and waste, you have townships, cities, all these interesting, it just means it's a lot more invoice formats, right? That you may not necessarily see over and over again with clients. So our ability to, and where we're really moving is an all PDF technology where, because PDFs are readily available. We found EDI, it's becoming more unreliable. It's harder to set up with the providers where a PDF invoice is always available. So being able to get new readers out very, very quickly, right, allows us to expand our ability to process invoice in minutes, right? Expand the scope of the providers that we offer and available to not only our end clients, but to our partners, increasing our ability to build those readers very, very quickly using readily available documents. And, in some cases, we'll still use EDI for supplemental data like CSRs and things like that. but we can always process the actual true native invoice. I had mentioned earlier, incorporation of LLMs, right? And being able to gain insight from the data we have in our systems. We're not just processing invoice data, we have location information, contract information, how your discounts and marks and submarks are set up, all the allocation data. So it is a big database, all centralized. Well, how can I get more insight out of that outside of your standard dashboards, reports, analytics, right? How can I am looking for this piece of data, present that. And then the final way is really improving how we audit, right? What are more things that we can programmatically audit for? As an example, tariffs and regulated markets for utilities, and really getting deep into more areas of telecom so we can find more opportunity. And with auditing, I think a lot of people think AI is going to do it all for you, right? But the way we really look at it is the purpose of auditing is to create flags that a very good analyst could come in and actually diagnose, investigate, and so forth. The purpose of auditing is not to recommend the solution. And I'm very wary of solutions out there that claim that AI does everything because I worry about accuracy. A lot of what we do is very logic based. And I think AI can accelerate that, but it's not there yet to provide the full solution. Any solution that it does identify or diagnose, you always want to second guess it. This is growing exponentially, though. In 6 months, it could be a very different story. So today is very different than it was 6 months ago. But that's my take on the state of the industry. These are the areas that we're actively working on to make our platform better, faster, stronger.
Great. Definitely makes sense. I mean, we all hear about AI and AI hallucinations. So definitely makes sense that you need to check it. And you can't just rely on AI to do the audit and expect everything to come out right. Are there any specific anecdotes or examples that you can tell us of some interesting integrations that you might have done with some partners or potential clients on behalf of the partner?
Yeah, so we pull in data from all different kinds of sources. Our logic in our system is, we always start with the invoice as the base, right? But the invoice is only a portion of the story. We have a partner who's a communication service provider, and they buy circuits wholesale. They mark them up, so kind of that off net, and resell them to their end clients for transport services, et cetera. We came in and identified and recovered millions and millions of dollars just kind of in that context of identifying errors when you're turning up circuits, making sure that it's turned up at the right rate, at the right time, according to the contract. And our technology immediately identifies that, right? And immediately identifies, this is the new circuit. And, a lot of our clients say, hey, because we can view it only from the invoice level. So even if we have no idea this purchase activity is going on, we still identify those changes immediately as soon as we import the invoice, because we've already done that comparison audit and could say, hey, here's the new things. But even better if we know up front, right, that those changes, and we have the orders, we know the allocations, et cetera. So we've done a few things. We are a ServiceNow shop. We built scope certified apps within ServiceNow. As an example, we have a self-service mobility that allows end users to come in and order devices, API connected with carriers. We also do the same thing from a wireline perspective. So we know that order was going in and at what price points, et cetera. It's automatically connected to our platform so that when we see that service turned up on the invoice, it already has all the data to verify or to say, hey, no, this is incorrect. And it goes right into a dispute case. We also have in that communication service provider, they don't necessarily use ServiceNow for that. They use Salesforce because they're taking orders from their end clients, and that is how they're recording it. So we've done the same thing with Salesforce from that perspective. We also act as the billing platform for that partner who said, hey, we need a platform to provide our invoices and reporting and analytics. They were historically only sending a PDF to their clients, and we're getting a lot of negative feedback on that. So we actually white labeled our platform to be that billing platform. And then they also had clients who were asking, can you produce an EDI feed of your invoice to us? So we implemented that as well. Just an interesting way to look at it from a strategic partner perspective, where Our clients are using our technology, started as a client, ended up as a partner because we were doing such a great job on the client side. And they said, well, can you help us with this? Can you help us with this? And it's all delivered under their brand.
Very interesting. So integrations with ServiceNow, Salesforce, and practically all the platforms out there.
Workday, Coupa, Energy Star, you name it. And every single one of our end clients, when we get through all the approved invoices, we send a funding file that they can upload right into their AP system. That is an exponential number of AP systems that we can drop files into for either the client to pay it or as a fund us. And
It sounds like you're on the leading edge on a lot of different capabilities. What do you see for the future?
I'm hesitant to say that in this world of AI, but my gut tells me invoice processing is very soon to be a commodity. And how long it takes to actually do it at the extreme detail, not just summarize an invoice, but actually be able to turn that into structured, usable data when you're looking at things like a corporate wireless invoice or a massive utility invoice where you're really trying to get to that granular data. It's not there yet. It'll probably be here soon. So that being said, just being able to process an invoice is one thing, but the value is what you do with, if we're going to make the investment in the partner, we want that relationship to last. Oftentimes with some of the options out there, you might be too small and not have a lot of exposure from a product management perspective. We build our products for their clients and our partners. It is driven by their requirements and we take them seriously. And if this is going to help that partner grow their business, then that helps us grow our business. Having that accessibility and voice is very important in these relationships. We have all the technology to scale, but we're still small enough to get that that white glove experience to our clients and partners. And they appreciate that. They're not just lost in a huge matrix of management. I think that's a really important consideration, whether you're a direct end client or looking for a partner.
So you think all of that should be on that shopping list and that checklist of evaluating partners, this idea of making sure that the partner actually has end user experience, not just good technology knowledge.
Yeah, and what level you have access to within the organization, right? Or is your voice going to be heard?
Sounds pretty important when you're constantly dealing with technology and billing that changes and evolves over time. You want to make sure that the technology that you're using to manage the billing also evolves. Tell us something memorable about AMI's white label program, maybe some anecdote or some experience that you had with a white label partner that we haven't already talked about.
Yeah, I think every partner you bring on makes you better from a process perspective. Process is equally, if not more important than product, right? How do you go and implement a large number of clients at scale with a partner? Really, what we've built over these years is processes. Every partner is going to be different, right? But at least we have a good baseline through this experience. This is something that we can replicate. Where do we modify this? Having that experience around your procedures. And a lot of this is how do you interact with the partner? We know once we have all the data, we know what our process and what our MO is, but how do we get that efficiently? And how do we set up that partner for success? How do we onboard new clients and set them up? And as their clients are growing, how do we do that at scale with the least amount of touches on either side, right? So having those processes well defined, and we have a playbook for every client and partner that we have, but also having things and that experience that we can replicate. Well, here's our best practice. Let's see if this works for you. You make a few tweaks here and there, but you're not building it from scratch. That is something we've developed over the years that I think is very interesting, especially in the space. We are a niche. So having someone who's done this before in that niche should provide a lot of comfort. We have it all documented. Let me walk you through this and let's see what aspects of this fits into your business and what we need to modify.
So Dave, let's flip it and talk a little bit personal now. Is there anything that you did growing up that kind of resembles what you do today in work?
Not in the slightest. No, growing up, I started my career in sales. Even when I was little, I remember my little league team had a pancake breakfast and you go door to door selling these tickets. My brother jokes that I invented setting up in front of the supermarket. I went and sat there. And if you won, you got tickets to see Boston Red Sox. Lo and behold, I won those tickets. Right. And so that resembles how I started my career. And I'm still very involved in sales and positioning today. Even when I was in college, I went to college in the late 90s. I was the last to get a cell phone. And then I had a career in managed mobility. Napster was about my technical prowess. I never would have thought that I would have a career in technology, integrations, doing all the things that I've been doing over the last 25 years. Never would have guessed that when I was little, but I love it. I guess I always loved gadgets and things like that. And that interest just kind of took me to where I'm at today.
And it sounds like you were an innovator at the very early stage.
Well, I started in sales. And the reason I got into product was I was always questioning, why is it done this way? Why are we doing it this way? And I ended up getting very involved with our product teams saying, this is a challenge here. Is there something we can do to modify the product to do this? And that actually ended up being something I love to do, right? I love, to many of the CTOs and director of products I've worked with, to their chagrin, I always ask, well, yes, we do it this way, but why do we do it this way? Are there ways that we can make this more efficient, whether it's from a client experience or our own internal? A lot of that has been helping my team here at ETMA find strategic partners that make us more efficient. We've partnered with organizations in this app community that have helped us on the strategic side, as well as where we've provided our services to those ETMA partners. That's why we hold this organization so dearly.
Oh, that sounds great. And if your younger self listened to this, what do you think would surprise them most about your career path and where you're at today?
Yeah, you became such a nerd in your old age.
Okay. Nothing about ending up in Colorado?
Yeah, I always knew I was going to hopefully end up near the mountains. I was a big skier growing up. Even in middle school, I started working for a ski trip company where if you recruited enough of your friends, you got to go for free, and they provided their own instructor staff. And by high school, they said, you know what, you don't do any more of this recruiting. We're going to go ahead and pay for you to get your PSIA level 1 training, and you can now be an instructor. So growing up in the District of Columbia, not a lot of mountains nearby, but in high school, I was a ski instructor and knew that was always going to be a big part of my life and part of the reason that brought me here to Colorado, but definitely the reason why I stayed.
Is there any tool, app, or hack that you use daily that you could recommend to people?
I mean, it's going to be pretty cliche, but the LLMs out there, we use both Copilot and I use ChatGPT, and it is something I use it more than I use Google nowadays, right? From everything from, hey, I use it around my house, right? I'll take a picture of something. Hey, my air fryer isn't quite working. Here's a picture of it. Here's what's happening. Can you help me troubleshoot it? Just the ability to do things like that nowadays is awesome, right? And I think it's in the area of the era of search engine optimization. I think it's really interesting when you start thinking about LLM optimization from a product marketing perspective. That's probably the tool I use the most, really for every day. When I'm looking for something, I want specific information back. I don't want to have to be searching through links. It's really just to expedite information that I'm looking for.
Are there any other things that you're really passionate about outside of work?
I've got 3 beautiful daughters that are all playing competitive sports. Also, one of my goals is, hopefully get them to the skill level. They become very good skiers, but ski the things I like to ski with them while I can still do it. So doing that kind of that balancing act, but now, very passionate about their upbringing and making sure that not only academically, but socially and athletically, they're really living these years, because there comes a point where, you're not going to be playing pickup lacrosse games, right? And you're told, make sure you have, sports and hobbies that are lifetime, and hoping they find their calling there the way I found mine.
Gotcha. Do you have any particular business goals that you laid out for the next year?
Yeah, for us, we do this every fiscal year. We're actually just coming into our new fiscal year as of July 1st. but it's always our product roadmap. We invest a heck of a lot into our product roadmap. We are a business that operates at scale, right? We process thousands of invoices, right? And we do this because we've been a direct client business for 34 years. We're one of the few folks who do this all natively. We do not use a bunch of outsourcers when it comes to things like invoice processing. And we've always done this natively. Everything we do is to make our assembly line more efficient, but not to have the technology do everything, right? There's a value in the managed services that we layer on, but we always look at reducing labor. If we can make it easier for our analysts and team to do things at scale, those are the investments that we want to make as our business is growing exponentially in the categories we manage and, just utility alone, right? It's a lot of companies don't want to go anywhere near it because of all the complexities that are involved. We are 100% confident, right? But we'll continue to get better. All the partners we use get to leverage the benefit of that, right? Why reinvent something that another organization has perfected and continuously modifying, right? When you've got a great sales team, you've got a great analyst team, but you don't want to go into that tech debt, right? That's where our partners can really leverage. We're always investing in our product to make it better, but not to the point where it is just a technology product, right? And it still has that area of managed service that delivers value.
Great insights, Dave. If somebody wanted to act on this and they wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about AMI strategies, what's the best way to do it?
You can go to our website and schedule some time to chat. Hit my team or hit me, but just put in there, I'd like to talk to David Sonenstein. Love to connect with you. I also on my LinkedIn page. Great way to get in touch with me as well. And look forward to any conversations or inquiries that come in. Always happy to talk shop, especially around these categories. I get a lot of calls from expense management firms saying, hey, I'm thinking about going into utility. What should I think about? That can be a very long discussion, or it could be a very short discussion and get halfway through. It's like, well, can we just use you? Yeah, of course you can. So here it is.
Sounds great. Well, this brings us to the end of another episode. We'll see you on the next one. If you enjoyed the conversation, let us know your thoughts. Put some comments in there and subscribe to our channel on YouTube at MedTech Talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
ETMA Talk podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes research, collective wisdom, and action. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions from the market's top problem solvers, making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.